Are you curious what the 90s song was that I was humming to see if my microphone was picking up right?
Yes, I am.
I don't remember the name of it, so I'm just gonna have to hum a few bars, but it was the do 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 do. What is that fucking song called?
So today on Girls Talk Comics, we are talking The Vision from Marvel.
Yeah. Insert synthetic noises.
Ooh, what's that instrument that they have in Doctor Who?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
it's like, I would say I need to learn how to play that, except I don't even know what it's called, so there goes that idea.
No.
Theremin. Theremin.
You know, I think we need to tell them who we are.
I guess that's a fair introduction. I am Erin, your master of mediocrity.
And I'm the lieutenant of literature, Jessica.
Welcome back. Season 2. Episode...
So many.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to look at the schedule. Is it episode 4?
Episode...
No. Oh, God.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes. I like that. We should just say we're Phantom Menace episode every time.
Yes. Episode Phantom Menace.
This was almost episode 4, but it's episode 5. So, as I already said, we're talking The Vision by Marvel. Do you want me to do the little spiel?
Yeah, do your spiel, girl. Tell me why I should care.
So, normally the show doesn't have scripts. I don't know if you can tell from whenever we're doing our spiels that maybe some of it is written down. And so, bear with me. The Vision series was originally published in 2015 to 2016. It's published by Marvel, written by Tom King, and drawn by Gabriel Hernandez Walta. This miniseries centers around Vision, obviously, and the family that he makes as a reward to himself. He had, after all, saved the world roughly 36 times. I think that was the number. Whatever it was, he deserved this family and a normal life in an average suburb. His family is small. There's his wife, Virginia, and their 2 children, Viv and Vin. Their life is idyllic and typical, with the same family arguments that the average middle-class family experience. Who does the chores, struggles with homework, wanting to just be an average middle-class teen. This all goes well until the stress of the family, the expectations of perfection, Vision's strict control, and the prejudice and bullying brings the facade crashing down. This is a difficult story to surmise. I was more caught up in the symbolism, the relationships, and the themes in the actual plot. In fact, they were so closely entwined for me that it's hard for me to distinguish between plot and my interpretation of it. I'm going to give it a shot. Vision has created his own family. He moves into a DC suburb in Virginia, wanting to live a normal life, the life he feels he deserves. His wife and children play their idyllic roles within the family unit, and all goes well until the outside world intervenes. Vin is bullied for being weird, a synthezoid. This results in Vin internalizing this anger and persecution. The Grim Reaper attacks the Vision's house, causing Viv to be seriously injured, Vin to shut down from a failure of logic and trauma, and for Virginia to retaliate in an unexpected and violent way. While this is happening, Vision is thinking about his lost love and all the times he saved the world, and how he deserves the perfect life. After the Grim Reaper's attack, things quickly escalate. Virginia deteriorates as she copes with her maternal urges. Viv withdraws and develops depression as she mourns her teenage crush. And Vin becomes more angry and mistrusting, inevitably dying at the hands of Vision's brother. It's a fucking ride. Vision finds out that his brother Vincent, another creation of Ultron, was sent as a spy by the Avengers, so when he finds that this man killed his son, he seeks revenge against the Avengers, getting precariously close to completing his original mission from Ultron to destroy the Avengers. So Vision breaks into the headquarters, confronts his brother, is about to kill him when Virginia, driven by something, maybe just simply her first act of agency, her second act of agency in the story, kills Vincent instead, keeping both Vision and Vincent from ultimately destroying the Avengers, which, good for her, I guess. So this plot is complicated as all hell, to be honest, but really caused me to panic. I grew up in a middle-class family. My father is a military vet, and so much of the pathos of the story reminded me of when I was in high school, when my father was deployed, and my family deteriorated due to distant substance abuse and neglect. No one was killed. But our facade of a perfect middle-class family was not maintained, no matter how desperately my parents tried. I mean, you can't really hide the fact that your kids have to call their dad in Kuwait to ask if they can raid his change stash so they can order pizza because they tried calling their mom who hadn't been home in 3 days and she wasn't answering her phone. That's kind of hard to do. I'm just saying, watching the Vision's house deteriorate was a representation of an emotional state that I could relate to. And it was really hard to separate the culture, the implication of it, from the actual plot. I don't know, Jess, can you explain the plot better?
Well, I only read volume 1 because I'm lazy, apparently. But, seemed like you did a decent job of covering what I knew about it. I can see now why I didn't get hit as hard by this emotional train, because this thing has been hyped, like, to me since it came out, right? Like, I had so many people like, oh my god, this is an amazing story, etc., 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 right? And I mean, like, I can see that it's a good story. I could see that it's a, like, oh shit, a lot of things are going wrong kind of story. But I did not have that family dynamic to begin with, so I never had the deterioration of a family dynamic of that ilk. Like, I'm a product of a single mother household, you know what I mean? Like, shit was not idyllic ever. So I couldn't figure out why I wasn't super emotionally involved with this, and kind of my original thought was that I was stumbling over the way that the Visions talk, like that very data-esque, I'm sorry, I can't do that Hal type synthroid thing. That is how
that really
they communicate.
Impersonal, kind of
very
cold
philosophical
communication.
Yeah, but I didn't have any investment in the beginning of the story, the type of family that they're showing and actively ripping apart before your eyes. I was just sort of like confused why, I don't know, I never got into like why the Vision wanted that. So I mean, like, I feel like I've missed out a little bit on like cultural zeitgeist because of my history in this case, because I definitely wish this would have felt as emotionally fulfilling to me as I was expecting. Like, maybe I got built up too much, maybe I just didn't have the history to be able to appreciate how well done it was, because I'm sure it was well done. Like, I can see that families like that probably exist elsewhere. But I was a small town. It was a good summary, I think, of what the situation is. And I think the two parts that stuck out to me the most was him lying to the cops for the first time and like making that conscious decision that he was going to have a human family, and in that way have that emotional attachment to them above all else, right? Which was this huge like reveal where he was like, no, I'm gonna hold this as the thing that is most important. Earth be damned, I already did my due diligence on the Earth. Like, I want my family now.
Yeah.
And then the whole like, I know what'll solve this, I'll make a dog. Like, that is the two like, those are the two things that really jumped out to me when I was reading this for the first time. I was like, oh yeah, I mean, like, I feel like that's the lesser, like, of, instead of making another small child to go with it, which is the only other type of, I don't know, like,
I am so glad you mentioned the dog, though. Like, the dog, that is such a tragic scene. Like, there's a lot in this book about humanity. That dog scene where the neighbor's dog gets into their yard and chews on, I think, the Grim Reaper's weapon.
Yeah.
And it kills the dog. And Vision, instead of being like, oh, shucks, I should apologize to the neighbor because there's a corpse in my backyard, was like, I'm going to turn this dog into a robot dog for my children. And you're like, I read that and I was like, what the fuck?
But it also feels like that suburban dad move, doesn't it? Like, I haven't been here like I should. Here's a puppy, kids. Like, sorry, I've been so distant. Like, it feels like a sitcom move, doesn't it? Like,
oh my god, yes, he's placating. Like, here's the pony girls.
Like, exactly. Like,
I know I can't parent you directly, but sorry, went out for cigarettes and came back years later.
Right? Like, I can see where it's good. I just never got that emotional like investment in it. And I 100% wonder if it's because I didn't have the cultural touchstones of it. It didn't immediately latch on. Like, I would have needed a warm-up episode of them being good. You know what I mean? Like that. Like, I would have needed another issue of that working. Otherwise, like reading it, it kind of immediately starts to fall apart, like, issue 1, you know, like, things
It
are
is
obviously
so hasty.
yeah,
Yeah.
not going well from the get. And I'm like, well, this feels like a failed experiment. And if you were really a good computer, you would have fucking scrapped it already. But like,
Like, they're existing for 5 minutes and it fails. Like, it's not even.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like they didn't even get a year of doing fine. Like, this all takes place
no.
in 2 months. I mean, like, it takes place longer than that, I think. But it's just because they do have a lot of time jumps in the second volume. But it is very, very quick turnaround. He's like, "What's up, neighbors? Everybody dies." What? Like, there is some death in volume 2 that it's all very tragic. Don't get me wrong, but I get it. I get it. It just starts, and I can agree with the sense of I didn't get a good chance to be connected to a lot of the characters. There was
Mhm.
another arc. I think it would have been fine because then you could get settled and really figure out who Vin and Viv and Virginia are without them struggling to be human and a computer at the same time. Like,
You know, I think the one that I had the most like capacity for was actually Viv, right? The little girl, and that was entirely because she seemed to be the one that was doing the best at it. Like
yeah.
just based off of like her interactions with her science partner, who then becomes like the first casualty of the whole breakdown, and like this terrible moment where she didn't let anyone know about that compliment. Like that felt like something that I could relate to, that like, oh, somebody said something nice to me today and I'm going to keep it for myself. And then like, and now he's dead. Like, this whole thing, I'm
Oh my
sorry,
god, yeah.
I have so like, because I have so little, the whole thing, the whole situational like spiral is like amusing a little bit, because I'm not like, oh, it's a terrible thing to have wasted. I'm like, who has those kinds of families? You know, like I'm a
Yeah.
little bit like, that seems like two parents. What? One of She doesn't have a job.
Who
What does
does
she do all
that?
day? Yeah, like
Yeah.
what does she do all day? Another thing I was missing, and I think would have really informed this, is watching the Vision and Wanda's relationship. If I had
Mm.
a comic exposure to it, not just the MCU, but like an actual had read them while they were married type of deal, and like watch
Mhm.
that divorce happen, because I could tell there was like a call out where he's got this plant that has some significance to Wanda in his house, and like it comes up and the wife gets quiet, you know, like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
she's the replacement wife, you know, like there's something there that
Yeah.
she doesn't like.
So I think that comes up a lot more in the second volume. I don't remember the timing of it, but in the first volume, did they talk about the fact that Virginia? So Vision, I guess, is made up of the brainwaves of Miracle Man in Ultron. In the comic books, he is.
Yes. Yeah.
They talked about that in this one. Did they
Mhm.
talk about how Virginia is Scarlet Witch? Is Wanda? Yeah.
They didn't confirm it, but they hinted at it.
I think they confirm
So,
it in volume 2.
okay.
Yeah. So, like, not only is she the replacement wife, but she's the replacement wife with the brainwaves of the ex-wife. Like, that's also kind of fucked up.
Who is still alive, right? It's not like she died.
Yeah.
She's still around. This is a person existing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, the
she's
whole
still
thing is
alive,
just
but she's with Miracle Man, I guess, when this is happening. It's all messy. It's messy.
whoa.
It's because
Goodness
Miracle
gracious.
I think
This is
Miracle Man died, and so like he was dead whenever Vision was made, and but then he comes back alive because it's
yeah.
Marvel, like duh.
Yeah.
So when he comes back, like Wanda gets with him because he's like really a human, or what? Like she was really in love with that version. I don't know. I didn't read all of that. This is all like side
Well, but
research, but it's just
so if
messy.
if Miracle Man is alive, then why did what's his face come after? Because the whole shtick about why what's his face like attacked the Vision family is because of like, you're not real, you're fakes. Like, how dare you be part of like my brother? You know, like
I don't really know. I think
you're not
that
my brother.
I think the Grim Reaper is just an evil dude. I'm not really sure. I again, this is all based on like listening to other podcasts and Wikipedia. So I don't understand the timeline. I don't know if there is a timeline. It's like, it's all just weird.
Just whatever sticks to the wall when you throw it, I guess. Is it like cooked spaghetti?
Yeah.
Is that how this works?
It's like cooks. Maybe more like those rubber hands that, like, when you stretch them out, they get a little, yeah. And then they stick and
Sticky
stain
hands.
the wall.
Yeah.
Or if you stick them
And
just
then
right,
you
they
just-
linger on your ceiling forever, and you're like,
And then you read the shadows. That's like Plato. That it's a modern day Plato's theory. You gotta.
oh my
You
God.
only know the
Yes.
stain on the wall from the sticky fingers. You never see the sticky fingers themselves.
So the plant that you mentioned, it has, this is relevant. It's magical, where the rumor about it is that if you eat one of the leaves, you're supposed to see the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it doesn't always work. And to really get the magic to work, you have to like cut open the belly of whatever ate it and then ate the leaf from that or something. It's also messy and weird. So they have a scene, I think, in the second volume showing that. But instead of the plants, I say we use those sticky hands, where we're reading the shadows to tell the future, tossing sticky hands. It's modern. You got to adapt to new technology, right? And maybe finger bones are a little bit, people frown on that. But so why not sticky hands?
I don't know if there's any way for me to be emotionally invested into this, because it is such a nightmare from the beginning. Like, the fact that they're able to limp it along probably would make it a little bit more like, oh my God, so they just did this for years, like however long the time jump is. Like, it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's the same kind of like thrill people get from watching natural disasters or something along the lines of like those terrible people doing terrible things to other people and then having terrible things happen to them shows. Like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and like it's got the same kind of like
That's fair. I just really I really related to Vin, because Vin was so angry and mistrusting. And that, like you said, Viv was obviously far more well adjusted than Vin was, because Viv was treated by kindly. The same boy who complimented her bullied Vin. So it was like they saw two different sides of the same coin, and that anger and distrust I just connected with more. So I think overall I connected more with like the dysfunction part. So I could see why you're like, I don't get this, because that's part of even dysfunctional. It's part of even dysfunctional families, is that there's always one person who's like, I'm out. Like, peace.
Yes, it's me.
Yeah,
I'm the. I'll just be in my room.
Yeah, and that was definitely more Viv too. And Viv obviously, or like later on in the second book, she struggles with the loss of that boy and a lot of grief around that. And the truth comes out about that interaction, that he died because Virginia was being blackmailed by his father. And, she went immaterial as he shot her, meaning the bullet went through her and struck his son. And this is it's a very violent book. So I could totally believe you when you're like, I don't understand this, the emotion behind it, why you wouldn't want to keep reading it, because it's intense. It's not it's not a lighthearted read.
It's definitely entertaining. It's action packed. How about that? I should say it's action packed. So I would want to continue reading it because it's a short run. So it's not like a huge investment to get to the end of it, right? Like you're gonna everything's gonna be washed away, right? Is this washed away or is this canon?
I think it's washed away. I'm not even certain if.
So
I think Viv exists still in some comics, so it's semi-canonical. But I really don't know if there's any fallout from this. There was another podcaster, shout out to Comic Book Couples Counseling, because this is where I got it from, where one of the hosts, Brad, was like, Vision joins the Avengers after this book. He's back in the Avengers after this, and he fights and is angry with the Avengers in the Vision, and I'm like, none of this makes sense. So canon or not, it's not. How do you go through and infiltrate and attack them and be like, you sent a spy to me and my family, the family I deserved, and that made me so mad because my kid ended up being killed. And then you're like, yeah, I'll join up. Like, who the fuck does that? Like, it's not. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just Marvel does as the world turns, kind of. Like, you know, like it's just very, it's very much like, And I think that's just because I think when I read it, it did feel like it was an allegory for a suburban life. You know, like I do think that that's why it feels this way. Like it feels so, I don't know. Like, is this how suburbia is? Like, I guess I could ask you because apparently you know. Like, is this how life is for people? This feels so just
so kind of
modeling,
like,
kind of like it's
the thing
really,
that I think
like,
about with suburbia, since certainly now that I work in a mental health and in a public mental health setting, the problems that exist in other households exist, like substance abuse, neglect. They exist in middle class families. It's just that you're rich enough that it's not as visible. So you're rich enough to have a lawyer means that if the Department of Children and Families was to show up at your door, you would have a lawyer who could come and prevent your kids from being taken away. Or you're rich enough that you have a large enough space that if you went and got high in your bedroom, your kids could be separate. Or they could order pizza and so the food wouldn't be neglected. Or you had a nanny. Or you had other family members who would come in and help out. You just had these resources that keep you from being, like, that are allowed to let you be invisible. You didn't have to go to public mental health centers. If you had nice enough insurance, you could go to a private psychiatrist or a private therapist. So it's just like, there's enough resources.
Or pay for treatment facilities time and again instead of having to go to jail.
Or you could pay for the really nice ones, you know?
Yeah.
Like not. So it's just like the money just gives you the power to be invisible. There are multiple times where somebody should have gotten involved with my sister and I. I mean, no one did because we learned a lot of survival skills that a lot of other families learn. We were also just lucky enough to have other resources where no one questioned. Like, we could do our laundry and have access to laundry reliable enough that no one could notice that, say, like, our mom hadn't been home in days. So it was just, again, that invisibility thing. This is me being very personal and open up. I'm sorry for anybody who it reminds of their own lives. I have spent years working through this, and I've come to a point where I can talk about this and be totally fine. Like, I'm not embarrassed or ashamed about this. This is just, it's what happened. So if anybody was listening and kind of shocked, this is just my reality. Like, I've come to terms with my family in ways that I need to. And that's all you all need sometimes to know. It'd be like that. So suburbia is kind of like that. There's also a posturing with your neighbors about, like, weird territorial who's doing better, like dick measuring contests, but it's, you know, the color of your lawn. I'm
sorry. I mean, like, I realize that this is very important for a subset of the world. And, you know, like, I feel bad that subset is dwindling and, you know, like, hashtag middle class problems. But, like,
yeah.
It's Southeast Kansas. It feels very bizarre to be, like,
it's also like upper mid class problems. Like, let's be real. It's upper middle class problems. So, like, my family was the type of family where if our extended family was coming over, of which there would be 13 to 17 other people coming into our house, you know, my mother would do this huge deep cleaning of the house, and my grandmother, may she rest in peace, would, like, come over and judge the cleanliness of, like, how white our toilet seat was. Like, she would go buy new toilet seats to impress my aunt who wiped my ass when I was an infant. You know, it was just like,
oh man,
these people have seen shit. They shit. I've been to their houses. Like, fuck, you bleached it. You sanitized it. It's fine. She's like, nope, we got to go get a new one. I'm like, what? She's like, when did you last get a new one? I'm like, you bought a new one at 4th of July, which is the last holiday. It's Thanksgiving. Time for a new one. I'm like, I don't understand this. So that, it was a weird
I feel
place.
like I was the generation removed from that. So like my grandmother's
Congratulations.
reality. Thank you. I mean, like, it goes downhill. It's not like a good it's like we moved further away from town because town was expensive. You know, like substance abuse problems drove my family from like the city to Hawaii inexplicably thinking that was gonna solve their problems. I'm sorry, it's funny because like wherever you go, there you are, you know, like that's why it's funny to me, but also that's where
also hilarious because you went to an island. Like, yes,
I know,
we
it's
have
like
a substance abuse issue. Let's go isolate ourselves. Like,
let's go to this city island. It's not like rural Hawaii. It's like, here is Honolulu. You know, like, welcome to a bigger city than Kansas City. You know, like
more expensive drugs.
Like, yeah. Well, it's not a big deal if you only drink alcohol. Alcohol's cheap everywhere.
That's true.
Anyway, and then when they moved back, they moved into farm world, right? And so my grandma has always had money, you know, and well, it's because she works. My grandma is a hard worker. She's always had nice things, right? And then there's this weird shift that happened where, like, there was my mom, and then there was my aunt, and my aunt did the suburban life, and my mom didn't. You know? Like, and then, so, like, it's like, yeah, it's like a huge step down. Like, we went from, like, my mom grew up in, you know, like suburbia America with, you know, the money, or at least the pretend money, and the substance abuse problems under the rug and all of this stuff. And then, like, now we're in one of the poorest towns in one of the poorest counties, in she's working 3 minimum wage jobs, and then here I am. You know what I mean? Like this is what happens after that fails. And so I guess, like, I feel like my mom would really relate to this book a lot more than I would. Like, the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm like, this sounds like my mom's stories.
You know what? At the same time, congratulations. Because, like, being able to relate to this book, like, your mom might not have done the suburbia spiel, but, like, you're not burdened with this weird like middle class trauma that's like from a negligent family background. Like, you being unable to relate to this is also a gift to you and the family that you're gonna create. Because, like, so, like, I know that if I was to ever become a parent, there are going to be certain milestones in my child's life that are going to cause me to be like, oh, fuck, I'm going to turn into my mother. Like, I can't do XYZ. That'll be my mother. And I'm going to have all of this, like, weird, you know, tension about, like, wanting to emulate my father, who is a reliable figure, versus avoiding things from my mom. And then, you know, struggling with all of that, where, like, you're going to have your own experiences from coming from a single mother household. But at the same time, like, knowing you, I hope you're excited about being a parent with a partner. Like, to me, that's just like kind of cool.
Well,
like,
it was the only way I was going to agree to do it. I was like, doing it by yourself sucks, so that's not happening.
Hey, but that's still like a really cool thing that you're at least not going to go into it. And of course, it doesn't apply for everybody. This is very much a singularly you kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
you're not carrying this burden of like, my middle class suburbia lifestyle was fucking negligent and shit. I'm scared to parent. You know, like, you had a badass mom who's created this like really happy healthy human being through years of whatever self-work you had to do. And you're like, I'm not going to do this alone, and it's going to be fucking great. But don't let me put words in your mouth.
Well, I mean, I think that I have a different subset of problems than a lot of the narratives in the world do. Like, people don't, single moms get stories, but it's usually like their children aren't there. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like when it's a single mom storyline, it's the moms are working and out doing things and maybe partying or maybe like, and it's never just like their relationship with their children, like maybe that gets 5 minutes of screen time in those stories, like, so I feel like this is a subset of storytelling that isn't super well explored in my experience, but like I've had this weird like high off of it because it's like, look at all of the problems I don't have, like the divorced family narrative is not a thing that I've ever worried about, like I've things like that I've been, like, yeah, sure, I've had to overcome whatever dark, whatever thing, I was left alone a lot as a child because of all of the jobs and stuff, but also like I had a lot of benefits that other people don't get whenever you have like a single parent versus a solo parent situation. Like my mom had my grandparents that she could rely on, and like she did a good job of finding people in her to build a structure for herself with friends, and family. And like I think that is a really niche experience in single parent households. Like I don't know that this is something that people could extrapolate from, like, oh yeah, no, like Jessica from Girls Talk Comics had a good time of it, like obviously like it'll be fine, like no, like there was a lot of shit there in the middle, but I feel lucky that a lot of the narratives of family trauma and of like generational trauma don't really look like my family. So I don't have to be here like, oh yeah, that's terrible. Every story that comes up, I'm like, God, that makes me hurt for myself. And I'm like, shit sucks to suck. Like, I don't know.
Sure.
Dad seemed like more trouble
nuclear
than
family. No, okay, so in defense of my father was like really fucking cool, and my mom for the most part it was just like the last,
I think that's
7 years
a weird narrative, isn't it? Why is that the narrative of the US, is that the fathers are terrible and mothers aren't?
I'm just gonna say it's sexism. Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it's just inherent sexism, both for and against men and women. Like the entire idea that fathers, like stay-at-home dads, are still controversial. Like it's just inherent flawed beliefs about it. My father was phenomenal, and for quite a few years my mother was too. And then stuff happened. So it's just,
people have journeys.
Yeah. And I think that just has to do with a lot of people wanting women to just be good mothers, and it's maternal instinct bullcrap. And
it's a lot of pressure. I'm just gonna tell you, it's a lot of pressure. Like this whole, the narrative around all of it is real. It's a lot. I have the benefit of having like 5 mother friends who have been well-established mothers before me, who have children of ages like 2 to 18, and they're some of my best friends in the world, and they have a very varied relationships to their children. They have a very laid back approach to the whole situation in totality. I think like all of them are fairly laid back, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you, Erin, like having those friendships for so many years and being exposed to their children and seeing that model, that perfectionism that was kind of beaten into me, like, you gotta do it all yourself and you gotta be perfect or it's gonna be a huge disappointment. And what if they don't love you? Like, that is no longer there's only 3 of them. If they leave, you're alone, like, it's like there's different issues whenever there's a limited pool of people in your family. Like, I'm just gonna say it, but like,
that's an existential fear I don't want to explore, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, let's not but like, seeing them overcoming their histories and having different approaches and being accepting of other people's approaches. Like, if I would have just stayed on the internet and watched the internet and gone, oh, this seems terrible, I'm never doing that, like that would have been where I was, like, it took exposure to real life mothers who were in the middle of raising children who all are pretty awesome little kids, like, that was really what it took for me to think, that seems like that might be fun, like, more than awful. Like, maybe I want to do that because I really enjoy interacting with their kids during all of these milestones of their lives, like, so I'm not gonna say that it's not scary because, like, Facebook is just bombarding me with all sorts of weird ass stuff, but like, also like having a real structure around you, like, I feel like a lot of people live in isolation right now. I mean, obviously, but even before, I feel like people had a lot of isolation where, like, coming out of the college circuit, you either lose touch with the people who settle down to have families or, like, just the grind of life, like, in the, like, what nowness of it all. Like, there's this huge, like, stalling point after you graduate. Like, fuck, like, what now? I've done all of the things and I've been so focused on this and doing it well that I've now, like, God, I'm 30. What am I gonna do? Like, I feel like that's, I mean, a huge obstacle to overcome if children weren't your, like, immediate, like, out of the womb, I'm gonna procreate type of inclination. I know there's people who do that, who like the idea of having kids and having a family and would totally pull this vision bullshit of, this is what I deserve, like, it's a good thing to have a family, like, what?
Yeah.
Who thought that was a good thing to have? They're terrible. But but watching a couple of, like, functional ones, I've now come around a little bit to, like, yeah, maybe that's a good thing to have.
Totally, I respect that. And I wasn't one of those people who was like, I need a family. And I think I'm right there with you, though. I don't think I've been as lucky to have or been able to maintain close relationships with people who've had kids. A lot of my friends have been men, so usually being friends with the father, you're more seen as the escape time than the co-parenting time. So I do have a friend up here who I was getting really close to right before the pandemic shut down, and she and her partner were like, fuck it, we are staying inside. So I don't blame that. And I had a lot of other good friends who had kids and I was spending time with it and I fell in love with the idea, but we grew distant. But I've always been more of a friend of the dads. They're not exactly the group who are like, we're going to get our young kids together. It's always been like, we're going to escape and play board games. So I see them more. At the same time, it's really nice being a girl in that group because I do try to foster positivity, and they're hearing them be excited about fatherhood really can be a positive impact from a different perspective, because I do think I fall more in line with a lot of the fathers I know than the mothers I know, because I would be that parent who'd want to be out of the house. I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to be working and providing and bringing home stuff. So like that traditional father role of being a caretaker is something that I relate to more than the maternal role of staying and nurturing. So it's been a positive impact in a different way of having all these fathers be excited about being able to come home and do parenting stuff, and seeing their children grow and bond. And so that's impacted me differently. I also do have quadruplet cousins. And so like watching them as babies was a turn off because like they were all color coded and it was just like, I don't want to have children.
No.
No.
Yeah. Woof.
So, like, I
Woof.
have a little bit of a conflicting viewpoint there of, like, being a
Hey, you
caretaker
know,
sounds amazing, but 4 at once sounds like hell, but I'm probably not going to have 4 at once. And all my cousins are really, really cool people. So it's just like, I'm
oh
at a
man.
crossroads.
Listen, I was real happy there was only one heartbeat. That's all I have to say. I was like, yes, this is
Congratulations.
fine. Thank you. It's only one. There can only
You
be
know,
one. No, probably not, but whatever.
whatever. I do hope when this gets published, Tom King will listen to this, and I hope he appreciates us talking about families and the ideas of them and dysfunctional family. And I hope he either judges us kindly or appreciates. I mean, the entire book is about family. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
No, and it's a really good book, and I 100% would recommend this book to people for all of the reasons it was recommended to me. I just feel like yeah, no, I couldn't have put it better than I did earlier, which is just like families, who wants those? Like they weren't a thing that I've ever wanted like to have, including my own most of the time growing up. So it's like why would Vision, this all-powerful being, go, you know what I need as a reward? A lifetime of draining emotional labor and no control over my future. Like, what?
You know what I need? A teenager. What?
Two of them. Two teenagers. Why? Not even giving himself like the baby step first, which I 100%
No.
feel is the way that people deal with teenagers later. Is they're like, yeah, but they were cute when they were small. Like they just have to keep telling themselves things like that.
You know, now I understand why parents would say that stuff to us. Like being an adult, like if I had a child who's being belligerent, I would probably be like, I only love you because I wiped your ass. And like your behavior is a result of me. Like, fuck off. But, you know, that's probably why
like
I'm not
too
a
late
mom.
to fix it now. I think that's how a lot of people feel when they're like their teenagers have this huge turn. It's like, well, there's nothing I can do at this point. Like that's going to be their work later. Like good job. Enjoy your therapy. I've
You're
done
like
my
washing
due
my hands of
diligence.
your emotional development. You're fine. Like,
It's
you're
fine.
on your own now. But
Well,
mom, I'm
like
8
you
years
pay for
old.
the
You're fine. Like you're just
it's fine. Hey, you suck it up, Buttercup. Like we're kind of just
yeah.
this is the world now. This is what it is to be a human.
No
Which is I
turning
feel
back
like
now.
this whole book, like, yeah, now that I've talked about it with you, I feel like his whole book has really made me think about families in a different way. God, it's fast. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's to his benefit, like it was able to kind of kung fu punch like fist of fury your emotional state with terrible things coming down like in an avalanche. But I don't know, like it is definitely an interesting thing. Like who thought, hey, you know what, the Vision, that weird like computery data-esque character that's sort of a tragic figure, we should totally make a family dynamic around that and do this family thing. Like that is just, it feels like opposites. I don't know.
All right.
I
So
mean,
we
like it
have
was
this
just so
computer. Let's
computers.
make him a dad. Like
Yeah, it feels like something that somebody had to be really good at their job to think of. Of course, now, but before, I'm sure like pitching it was like, no, hear me out. It'll be fine. Like he makes himself a family, dude. It's like a suburban drama with these huge like interstellar beings, but it's just a suburban drama. No, really, dude.
Fortunately, Tom King's a really solid author. Like he's a really great writer. So hopefully by the time this came out, people were like, "We trust you, Tom. We have some questions, but we trust you." Just there he was producing this work.
Did I railroad you off of anything you wanted to talk about on this book? You had so many feels. I feel like I kind of
No, I think we
disrailed
covered
you.
all of it. And I'm glad we talked about what we did, because mine was going to be just like, oh, this feels like an Adam and Eve story, and like, look at all this, and da 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 da, and it would have been weird. So I'm really glad we talked about it. I think some people might listen to it and be like, this isn't a fun conversation, because they might not care about family dynamics, but for us, this is the shit we care about.
Yeah.
Put this in your repertoire of things to not do as a parent.
That is legit. Hey, maybe just don't do some of these things. And also, if you liked what we do here, which is admittedly probably fairly odd as far as podcasts go, maybe follow us on Facebook or on Twitter, or hit us up on Ko-fi and buy us a comic book. We are available in most places you stream, and we are definitely looking at expanding those things. So if you have a preferred method of listening, let us know how we can help.
We're here for you.
For you.
We're here for you more than Vision was for Viv and Vin. It's a really low bar.
Too soon, Aaron, too soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was pretty. Ooh. I feel dirty from saying that. Anyway, we love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, no, it's cool that he remembered Fall Out Boy, because I knew that other people had sampled that song, and that's usually what I'm singing whenever I'm singing that bass line, but it is actually a Susan Vega's Tom's Diner. But he gave me the hint that got me to Google the right thing, so congratulations.
Hey. David helped. He already left. I'm glad that he remembered Fall Out Boy. I was not going to put that together.
Speaking of families, my family just brought me dinner.